This episode of Fuel for the Soul is powered by ASICS. Head over to asics.com and sign up for a one ASICS account. It's completely free, and when you sign up, you will receive 10% off your first purchase. You'll also gain access to exclusive colorways on asics.com, free standard shipping, special birthday month discounts, and more.
Hi, this is Thomas with Believe in the Run.
This is Meghann with Believe in the Run.
And this is Meghann with Featherstone Nutrition.
Come on, we've been doing this long enough. Do I really have to say AKA Feathers?
It just feels like part of the intro.
Can we just get her to say I'm Feathers?
No.
I think she should say I'm Feathers and throw out like a little bag of feathers when she says it. Like
every time.
Fairy does. Yeah, and she have to clean up her house every day.
Okay.
Maybe she get a bird.
You're listening to Fuel for the Soul, the podcast where we chat all things hydration and nutrition and how it affects performance. And Meghann hates birds.
I'm
not getting a bird.
The last episode, though, we didn't talk about everything hydration, fueling, and stuff. We talked about Meghann.
Yeah, that was fun.
We've got an update on Meghann's cracked pelvis.
Yeah. My sacrum is healed. I've been healed.
Yeah.
Crack is whack.
Yeah. Apparently, I'm not cracked anymore. It's not broken.
Nah,
so I'll take it. I'll take it.
You're all good. Let's talk about this a little bit. Yeah. So you had a little weird thing in your sacrum.
Yeah.
You had to take some time off.
Yeah.
Running.
How long was the total time off again? Like nothing?
I think it was New York to now.
It was November 1st. Our shakeout in New York was the last time I ran, like full body weight. So that was like 16 and a half weeks. Yeah. It was long.
Oh, you're a champ.
Here's what I remember from that run. We start moving. And Meghann goes, yeah, no.
I was like, I'm not running the marathon. There's no chance. Well, rewind. The doctor told me that it was a disc and that I might wake up one morning and it would just feel fine. So I was holding on to that. Like, I'm going to wake up and feel fine. You know, the delusional thoughts. And yeah, it was like, I think I was right next to you. I ran like 100 meters and I was like, yeah, no, I'm in so much pain. So it was a 2-loop and we ran both loops and I couldn't figure out how to get out. And I was
you did run both loops?
Yeah, I did. And then I couldn't walk the rest of the day. No, I should have. Yeah. Clearly.
Yeah. And for the first time, Meghann ran New York City Marathon without feathers.
It was very
much
sad.
Less fun. Anyway, so Meghann, you're healed now. You're not quite to full body, but getting...
Wait, she's got a full body. She's not putting full body. Wait.
There you go.
You know what I mean.
You're using the lever still, right?
Yeah. The lever has been so incredible. Like, I can't believe how helpful that has been. Like, it has just... I'm just obsessed with it and so thankful for it. But... So yeah, my doctor said I'm up to like 8-minute increments. So like I've done 4 miles total with like walk between. So like 4 by 8 minutes. And it feels great, but it's at about like 75% of my body weight. So she told me I can either keep that duration and slowly get down to 100% body weight or go 100% body weight, but go back to 1 minute run intervals. So with the weather the way it is here in Ohio still, I think I'm going to stick with the longer intervals and wean down the weight on the lever for now. But I will say, if there's a beautiful day someday, you better believe I'm going to change my clothes, quit working for a moment and go out and run a little bit. But, you know, the sun needs to shine and there needs to be no ice on the ground for that to happen.
I got it. I'm going to let you preach about the lever a little bit before we move off of it, because I've used it every time that I've had an issue, and especially times coming back from injury. Mm-hmm. And it is the underestimated piece of recovery equipment.
Well, in the past with I had a bunch of foot surgery years ago, and I used the AlterG because the lever wasn't around yet. It was like in 2012. At least I don't think it was. And I loved the AlterG. Like, I loved it. So to be fair, I was like, there's no chance this lever's I'm gonna like it as much as the AlterG. And my PT has an AlterG, and I only used it once because he wanted to see my gait. But I prefer the lever. And then I actually like how that feels better than the AlterG, which I think is saying a lot because AlterGs are ridiculously expensive. And then you have the convenience of it being in your own home, and it's portable. So if you don't have a treadmill, you can take it to the gym and slap it on real quick, which I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, that's the thing that's really nice about it is you can, if you don't have a home treadmill, you can pack it, take it to the gym, set it up in like seconds. Same thing with hotel or whatever if you're traveling. But and this is not an ad.
I was gonna say that felt like a sponsor spot, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, now that we've totally gone off our typical subjects per usual, we do need to talk about one of our actual sponsors,
Who dat?
which is Runway. And today we're going to talk about their collagen product, which is originally how we found them.
I like that, but I'm using the protein with creatine. I like that.
He's like, I want to talk about that one. They have great products.
I had that this
all
morning.
in all.
I saw this post of someone saying they needed to up their protein, so they were taking more collagen. And I was like, I don't know if that's how it works. But in my mind, and you tell me if this is correct, Meghann, collagen is used to sort of protect your joints while you're working out. And then protein is meant to
build muscle.
build them back after they've been broken down.
Not your
Correct.
joints.
Correct.
Or your muscles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would not consider collagen a source of protein for us. Yes, it is a protein, but when we look at the actual amino acid makeup of it, the amino acids that it's rich in are the ones that help us heal and strengthen our cartilage, our tendons, and ligaments, right? So it's those soft tissues that the collagen helps with, but it's deficient in the amino acid leucine, which is what triggers our muscles to recover. So we would have to take like whatever our normal protein intake is, which is for a lot of people is 25 or 30 grams per meal, you would have to triple that to get enough leucine from collagen. So, when you look at the research, like you can quote unquote count a third of our collagen towards our protein intake. But we know from research that 10 grams of collagen is what we need to stimulate those muscles and tendons and cartilage to regrow and rebuild and regenerate. So we could count like 3 grams of that towards our protein. Like I always just say, like, put collagen in your supplement basket. Plus, we want to take collagen before we run, and we need protein after we run to recover. So I personally put collagen in a totally different bucket than like our protein powders. So I agree with your thoughts on that, Meg.
So real quick, is the collagen, like I always think of collagen and cartilage. Like is collagen made out of cartilage?
So most supplements are bovine cartilage, which would be like rawhide of a cow. Yeah.
Oh.
Cute.
Yeah. Like
So
she's
now
the
that we've
healthiest
won
joint.
you all over with our description, if you want to try some Runway collagen, you can go to runway.life, that's RNWY.life, and use the code FEATHERS15 for 15% off your purchase. Okay, before we answer listener questions, we have a new product to talk about that, Meghann, you kindly gifted me after you were gifted one.
Yeah.
I'm upset.
And it's
Sorry,
called
T.
Airflow. Right? Is that how you say it? Airflow?
I think so. And this is why I freaking love our community. I posted a post, some of you probably saw it on Instagram. There was this research study that came out that looked at drinking bubbly water after a long run, and that improved mood, and it brought your blood pressure back up to where it was supposed to be, and it decreased fatigue. And I literally, like, my jaw dropped as I was reading this, because all I could picture was Meg and I going for a training workout in Boulder at altitude, sucking wind, and then we ran straight to the bagel shop, and both of us like chugged a seltzer water. And I remember in the moment being like, is this weird? Like, who craves seltzer water after a run? And I always do, and I know Meg does. And I was like, and so when I read this research, I was like, holy crap, there's like something to this. And it's something with the bubbles and the swallow reflex that it brings up your blood pressure faster, which decreases fatigue. Like, it's all those crazy mechanisms of why it works. But I was like, holy crap. So I posted about it, and so many people came out of the woodwork and said, like, I do that too. And I don't know why in my mind, I think it's weird. Like, why do we crave bubbles? Like, wouldn't our stomach like not want that and want food? Like, I don't know. But anyways, there's clearly something to it. So one of the girls who follows me, I don't know her. She'd never reached out. Her name was Jody. She was like, my husband has this company, which is Airflow.
Hi, Jody.
Hi, Jody. It takes these bottles, and all you do is put water in it, and then you push this button on the top and it carbonates it. And she was like, do you mind if I send you one? I was like, do I mind? This sounds amazing. And they were like, well, we'll engrave it with Featherstone. I'm like, even cooler. And so when I got it, I was like, this thing is legit. And I knew how much Meg liked it. And I was like, hey, you want to send one to Meg too? So that she's been able to play with it. Yeah.
I love it because, well, one, I know it's like environmentally friendly, but two, I feel like you can make it as bubbly as you want. Like I feel like the 4 squishes, yeah, it sounds crazy. But when you do it like 4 times, that's like the perfect bubble amount for me.
See, I don't even know why I'm on the show.
Thomas,
Like,
she can
I don't
share
get
with
the
you.
bubbly. No, she can't.
Yeah, he won't share. You know him, germs.
Yeah.
Fair.
But not just that. She's always on it.
Yeah. Well, sorry, T. I
So-
felt selfish I felt like bossy
No,
being
it's
like,
all
can
right.
you send
You
two?
know, obviously Jody doesn't understand. There's 3 hosts on the show. You know,
Well-
the very important one, Meghann, who has the brains. The very important Meghann one that has the looks, and that other guy.
I don't know. All right. We'll see if John and Jody will send you one too.
Nah, I'm just kidding. We do buy, like, this is not news to us because our household is a bubble household.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's always seltzer at our house.
Yeah.
And,
You know what I found? Like a lot of airports don't have seltzer water, and a lot of convenience stores don't have seltzer water. Like I was driving home from Cincinnati this weekend, and I stopped at just like a huge rest station, and they had no bubbly water. I was like, how is this possible? So I
Like, but
should have
every
had this
soda
with me.
flavor in
Exactly.
the world. Yeah.
Exactly.
actually, I'm not even seeing a ton of sodas anymore. I always see like vitamin
energy
water
drinks,
or
Yeah.
like a protein drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, now we got our airflow, so we're good
I
to
should
go.
have taken it.
Some of
I
us.
know. I got to travel with it.
Okay, let's get into some listener questions here. Our first one is from Caroline. Not going to say your last name correctly. Micklop? I don't know.
Wait, give it to me. Let me.
Mckillop.
Michelob?
No, it ends with a P.
Michelob?
He's
Okay.
thirsty.
Caroline M. She said, "Thank you so much for all you do to support the running community. This podcast has really helped my training and also helped me feel less depleted after runs. I'm a vegetarian runner and discovered my ferritin was low, 15, about a year ago. I already eat lots of beans and greens, so I started taking 1 Hemaplex daily. My ferritin is up to 29, and I definitely feel better, but would love to get closer to the 40 number you recommend. Do you have any suggestions for me that do not involve eating a meat? I plan to take a second Hemaplex to see if that helps."
I think this is a good time of year to talk ferritin again. We've talked ferritin often on this podcast here. But there was a newer study that came out that looked at over 1,000 athletes and what their ferritin was. And then it measured their VO2 max, which would be like, our performance indicator, if you will. And what it found was that anybody's ferritin that was below 20 was associated with a much lower VO2 max than we would predict, and that they had a difficulty increasing their VO2 max, which I thought was a very nice correlation between low ferritin and not just immediate performance, but also like performance potential throughout a training cycle. So this is why we like to harp on getting our ferritin checked earlier in a training cycle, so that if we find out that it's low, we have time to supplement to increase it. So like Caroline said, it took her ferritin a year to improve 14 points. So some people really struggle to increase their ferritin. So it's not like something that we can find out in a week later it's fixed, like B12, right? We have to have some time. So I always recommend people look into their ferritin early in case it is low, just because there is such a high incidence of iron deficiency in runners, mainly because there's a lot of factors in running that increase our losses, and then we don't absorb a ton of iron through our diet. So we have losses through our GI tract. We have losses in sweat. We have losses in foot strike hemolysis. So we add all these little things up over time, and that's why we end up seeing that more runners are prevalent to having low iron. So a lot of people are in a similar scenario as Carolyn. And then when we look at vegetarian sources of iron versus meat sources of iron, we know that we absorb even less of the iron that's available in plant sources. So we do see it's more likely that someone who's vegetarian or vegan may have a low ferritin. So it sounds like she's been supplementing. We talk about Hemaplex, which is a higher dose of iron on a daily basis. But clearly that's not quite working. So some of the factors, if you have found that your ferritin's kind of struggling to increase, which I would say 15 to 29 over a year is a little bit of a struggle if we've been supplementing daily, we can look at some things like the timing of our supplement, because iron is very, very poorly absorbed, and a lot of things compete with it. So we have to make sure it's not with our other supplements like calcium, magnesium, or zinc, because all of those compete for the same absorption sites. And then also the dose. So I have a lot of people that might just not be taking enough iron to get that to improve. So she mentioned that, like maybe she's thinking about taking more, which is one strategy. And then two, like the type of supplement. So we have different types of iron. Some of them are absorbed better than others. They do make an iron supplement that is a heme iron supplement, which is the meat form, which people respond well to, which obviously won't work for her, but that is an option. And then sometimes when people really struggle to improve their ferritin, there might be something else going on. So I've had 2 people diagnosed with celiac when their ferritin wouldn't increase. That's very rare, but there could be some sort of malabsorption, right, in our small intestine that's keeping it from improving. Underfueling, right? So if someone has low energy availability, they have a really hard time improving their ferritin because we just don't have enough energy left over in our bodies to use that to build new red blood cells and all that jazz. So take a look at, like, is she eating enough on a daily basis? Is her GI tract working okay? And if all those things check out, we look at the timing of the supplement and the quantity of the supplement. And, just kind of, I would probably, if I were her, get it tested more frequently so that you can keep eyes on it to make sure it is improving from the changes that she's made.
All right, quick question for you there, because I've been taking my iron before I go to bed. So it's in my nightstand. I take a iron pill, but lately I've been adding a magnesium in at the same time because magnesium is supposed to be taken before you sleep.
Yeah.
And so you're saying that I'm kind of like negating the maximum impact. So on nights when I take an iron pill, should I just not take a magnesium?
Excuse me. I would probably try to separate them completely. So if you want to take magnesium at bedtime, I would put your iron somewhere else during the day. Yeah.
Is there anything to do with ferritin and factors like, we know that sweat and stuff is going to burn off more of the iron in your system, the micro tears and stuff like that bleed out, especially as we get into warmer temperatures. Does sleep help recover iron, or what are some other factors that we can do that maybe aren't necessarily supplementing but like behavioral?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I have to imagine that sleep would be correlated with an improvement, right? It gives your body that time to rest and rebuild, which would be rebuilding those red blood cells. I have never specifically seen like a study looking at that, but gosh, it sure makes sense, like hypothetically. I'm trying to think of other, I guess one behavior is there is some research to show that we absorb iron the best like right after our run, because we do have an increase in something called hepcidin that competes for our body won't absorb as much iron when hepcidin starts to climb, which climbs after exercise. So there is some research to show taking our iron supplement like immediately post run, but then we don't want to eat and like dairy with calcium or drink our coffee. So like you really do kind of have to almost pause for an hour before you eat. So it's balancing that, right? That recovery nutrition with like optimal timing of iron, which obviously compete a little bit in there. So it can be tricky, like to try to figure out like what makes the most sense. Yeah.
I use the time, what is it called? The Hemoplex that's like
Time release.
Slow release?
Time
Or
release.
slow release,
That's
yeah.
Slow release, yeah. And I just take that before bed, and I've seen like pretty dramatic improvements. Like I'll notice a difference within a month or two if I take it.
Well, that's another question I have about ferritin in general. It seems like mine's pretty steady. When we get blood work done, as long as I don't take a supplement all the time, like every other day or stuff like that, maybe 3 times a week. Meghann, on the other hand, you've been pretty steady with stuff, but your ferritin has jumped.
Yeah, all over the place.
Like you've been low, you've been overly high. Like what's going on there?
I don't know.
But that's not uncommon for females. Like honestly, like changes in our cycle will make a huge difference in our iron status depending on how much we're losing or not losing, right? So I do see it's not as consistent for females. Like that's fair. That's a fair statement. Yeah.
So when she's talking about her levels going up and down, could it also just be an affect of timing?
Well, one important thing to remember is ferritin is an inflammatory marker too. So if we are in an acute state of illness or a lot of training beforehand, or if we have an underlying inflammatory condition, we're going to see that our ferritin is falsely high, right? That's why I always tell people, like, don't get it done a few days after your marathon. Don't get it done when you're sick. Don't get it done when you have a ton of life stress, because it's going to look falsely high. So it is possible too, if somebody's ferritin is bouncing, that maybe we just didn't draw it at an ideal moment and we caught it when it was a little falsely high, right? So there's always that. I mean, ferritin is tricky, right? That's why I always tell people to not just draw a ferritin, right? It doesn't tell the whole story. We need the iron panel, we need the CBC that has the hemoglobin, and we take all of those things into account, when we're looking at this.
Okay. Let's answer Austin's question. I'm again not going to try and say his name.
Give me the spelling. I'll give it a
Bracci.
Bracci.
That's not a sound.
Bracci?
2 C's?
Yeah,
what are
it's a
2 C's
sound.
I thought it would be bracci.
Yeah, it could be bracci. Yeah, I think in Italian it's 2 C's.
Austin Bracci.
Bracci.
Is Austin an Italian name?
Austin Bracci.
No, it's probably not Italian at all.
2 C's always to me is. It could be Bracci or Bracci. I don't think that one's that crazy.
Okay, so Austin took a shot at his first marathon in Miami. However,
bad choice.
I took the off ramp at the half marathon because 1, it was way hotter than any of my training runs and I wasn't prepared.
Horrible.
2, I started to experience extreme swelling in my hands and feet that I had never experienced before, and honestly, it kind of creeped me out. This was my first marathon attempt, but I felt I hit all the necessary pre-race things. I carb loaded for a few days and felt decent with my hydration and sodium intake. One other note, I ran with a hydration vest and a 1.5 liter pack. My intent of only drinking a sip if and when I got thirsty and or took a gel, but I had drank the entire thing by the end of 13 miles, just trying to stay hydrated. Was the swelling over hydration because I drank too much water too quickly, or was it because my body wasn't acclimated to the heat since most of my training had been in the winter?
Can I take a guess at this one?
Is there something that I'm missing out that could have caused it? Would you recommend that I have blood work done?
I don't think he needs blood work necessarily, but I'm gonna give my uninformed opinion.
Non-expert.
Then we'll give our expert opinion. So I ran in the Grand Canyon, and my hand swelled up real big, and we were taking salt pills and we were drinking tons of water to try to stay ahead of like the sweating. And while my body was sweating a ton, I think that somehow like it expanded the capillaries or whatever you got in my hands. Like my ring was hurting my hand, and it swelled up. It wasn't like the rest of my body was swelled up. I was actually sweating a ton, but my hands got really big, and I'm thinking something to do with the salt and the way that the body was trying to get rid of it. It wasn't able to get completely out of my system. So I'm thinking that maybe he did such a great job hydrating in sodium ahead of time that his body wasn't able to keep up with getting rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the things you're saying absolutely are true, right? I don't think this was just a water thing or just a sodium thing. I think there was a lot of factors here, some in his control, humid. Some out of his control. Yeah, that's why I pulled this question, because I was like, I knew you guys were there, and you both said the half was like so hard to run into. And sounds like Austin also came from a colder climate. So part of it is not being acclimated to that heat. Like that's shocking for our body, right? So just like you said about those capillaries, that's absolutely true. We actually have some like fluid that like leaks out of those little bitty capillaries in our hands and our feet that causes swelling, and that's exertion related. So because he wasn't used to training in the heat and wasn't acclimated to that yet, his body felt that higher perceived exertion from the get-go, right? So I think some of the swelling might have just been that his body was working so much harder than it had been used to, even though he did all the training, right? Like it was a shock to his system. He had never run, a marathon before, so there was probably nerves involved that also increased his heart rate. When our heart rate's high, when our core body temperature is high, that's when we have those symptoms of high perceived exertion, right? So I think that's a piece of it.
With the high humidity, you know how that's like when you're sweating and it doesn't evaporate. So like you're very wet, and I don't know if what that does physiologically to your body as you're sweating and it's not evaporating. Like you're not getting that cooling sensation. Right. It actually becomes like a blanket of wetness. Yeah.
Exactly. That's why the humidity is so hard, or like those high dew points are so hard, because what cools us is the evaporation of that sweat off our body, and it can't evaporate if the dew point or the humidity is too high. So certainly I think that was a piece of it. Like, I give him kudos. It sounds like he did a lot right leading up to it. The second thing is, if he's sucking down a pack of 1.5 liters because he's so hot, if it was straight water, I do think if he was super sweaty and it was all water, I do think he could have started to kind of dilute that sodium in his blood. And like the very beginning of what we call hyponatremia could potentially happen in this type of scenario if he was only drinking water, because that's when we're sweating out a lot of sodium. So if we only take water in, we're diluting the sodium that's in our blood, which can cause swelling of the hands and feet. So it's possible that was a piece of it. There's no way to know that unless he would have gotten lab work done immediately when he crossed the finish line, right? You can't go back and like do it now because our serum sodium changes very rapidly. And I'm sure he's better now and everything's fine. So there's no way to like truly confirm that. But I would recommend to him or anybody running in the heat that is a heavy sweater or not acclimated, like we need some sodium. Let's not just drink plain water out there.
But I will tell you this, a little shout out to Austin, because you know, you did the training. What I would do is go experience a good marathon that's in a better climate, and enjoy it, because I know that you probably felt like that was really tough, and it was. We were out there for the half and I was miserable. And you know, Meghann ran one of her slower marathons, but came in second place overall for the non-elite.
You were second for the half? I don't think I knew that.
There's a professional field, so it was probably like 12th or something.
Yeah.
She had a rough day and ran first or second non-elite person. Anyway, what I was trying to tell Austin is go find one that's closer to 50 degrees and enjoy it and try that, because like if you could run the half there and feel this way, you're gonna feel great.
And obviously there's nothing you can do about the weather on race day. What you get is what you get. But it sounds like he did pretty much everything correct in the lead up, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, he said he carb loaded. I don't think he specifically said he hyperhydrated, but it wouldn't shock me if he did, if he's been listening.
I thought he said he did.
Yeah. Hydration and sodium intake. Yeah. So he was certainly aware of those types of things. And honestly, like, I can't say enough, kind of what you were saying, Thomas, like, thank you for listening to your body, Austin, right? Sometimes we are so stubborn as runners. We get ourselves into trouble when our body's warning us, right? That this is too hot. I'm not used to this, right? Like, kudos to him for being like, you know, some people are real stubborn for that first marathon and like, I trained for this, I'm doing this. And he took the off ramp, and no shame in that game. You saved yourself. You might have gotten yourself into a whole world of hurt, you know, health-wise, sticking with something. So listen to your body, guys. It's okay to adjust.
I mean, it should tell you something when the pro women's winners time was a 3:04.
Oh my gosh.
Who would normally probably be running closer to a 3:30 to 3:20
No,
something.
2, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 2:20 to 2:30.
Yeah, pretty wild.
That is crazy. Yeah, that says a lot. So there you go, Austin.
Yeah.
Kudos to you. Yeah.
Oh, wait, the only other thing is he asks, do you think he needs blood work, or do you think this is probably not related?
Yeah, I think it was, I do. I think his body wasn't ready for that heat. His perceived exertion was too high for a multitude of reasons, and I think he probably overdrank water. Yeah, so there's nothing we would need to do there. Yeah.
All right, let's answer another listener question here. This one is from Kari Whitmer. She said, hello, favorite running nutrition podcasters. I am loving your podcast and the content with actual academic knowledge. I heard you say a few episodes back that, quote, I hear people raving about stroopwafels, but phew, they are pricey. And I yelled, amen. I am a celiac, gluten-free and oat-free, and lactose-intolerant, dairy-free runner. Side note, these are medically diagnosed conditions, not a fad that I follow to help my aura or something. Do you have any suggestions for easy pre-run snacks? I'm jealous of your graham cracker and animal cracker suggestions. I'm stuck on gluten-free honey stinger stroopwafels or gluten-free white bread with peanut butter. Can you please also remind us about the grams of carbs we should aim for before an easy run versus workout versus long run?
Before we get into that, there's cheaper versions of those stroopwafels in the supermarket. Like I've noticed that there's like, if you go
brands,
just in the cookie aisle, there's
like
ones that are from like
gluten-free.
Sweden.
Yeah, we get them from Aldi, and it's like $2.99 for 10. And my kids love them. They're like legit from Germany, but they're not gluten free. Yeah, so I think that's probably part of the problem.
Because I was gonna say there's cheap ones from different spots.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly, for her, I think probably one of the biggest things she could do is cereal, like gluten-free cereal. I have a lot of people who use that because it's gluten-free cereal is usually pretty low in fiber, so it would work. I forgot she was oat-free, so she can't do Cheerios, but like Chex, there's like corn Chex, rice Chex, things like that. But what about something like a banana or like dried fruit, right? Like that would be a really easy choice. Or fruit snacks or juice or a sports drink, you know, all that kind of stuff would be super, super economical, and you could find it anywhere, you know, maybe not bananas.
But I think it's a chewing thing that she's probably jealous of. Like, it is nice to like feel like you're getting something in your stomach.
I would do a bowl of cereal, honestly, with like almond milk that doesn't have much fat or protein, you know?
Rice Krispies.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, like Rice Krispie treats. Like, I wonder, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what's exactly in them.
What about pretzels? Is there gluten-free pretzels?
There are really good gluten-free pretzels, like Quinn's, and it would be cheaper than a stroopwafel. That would work too.
I like a pretzel.
I do too. Plus, then you get the salt beforehand. So.
Yeah,
definitely. The other thing she wondered about was, please remind me of how many carbs I need before my run. So the official research answer is, before long runs, we need like 1 gram of carb per kilogram of body weight. And then before a race, it's like 1 to 2 grams, so a little bit more. But honestly, a lot of times I just try to get people to get like 25 to 30 grams of carbs before a run that's less than an hour, and then double that if it's over an hour. So like 50 to 60 grams. But that's assuming we're eating enough. If somebody's under fueling, then we definitely need to be scaling that up quite a bit. But, you know, I think oftentimes I'll have somebody take 1 pack of fruit snacks versus 2, or, you know, obviously it depends on how much, many grams of carbs are in them. But I think that's just a good, easy, quick way to remember.
You also did a whole thing on nerds.
Those nerds clusters are having a moment.
Yeah.
It's funny how adults turn into children with some stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I still want my nerd rope.
Yeah. I mean, I don't obviously I don't have the popular opinion here, but like, I don't love them. Like, I like a good candy, but they're still sitting in our drawer from that video.
Yeah.
Oh, the kids aren't even grabbing them?
You know, this is an interesting thing I was thinking about recently. I don't let them like not have things. Like, if they want to try something or they see a new candy, I'm like, sure, buy it, bring it home. And it sits in our drawer. Maybe they try it, maybe they never open it, and it just sits there. Like, I don't know. They like candy and stuff, but I think because I've made it just like grab a banana,
readily
grab
available.
A nerd.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of loses that like allure of, oh my God, I gotta have candy. So, I mean, we always have candy in our drawer, and every other month I look through and I'm like, okay, they haven't touched this in 2 months. I'm throwing it away. Yeah.
All right, let's get one more question in here. This is from Daniel Miller. He put an adjective before your name, but I'm not going to say.
He did apologize. He thought it was funny. He's at the end. I just didn't include that part.
He said, "Hi, big feathers."
That's your fault, T.
Yeah.
Well, look, there's different ways. Like, you were Meg's height challenged feathers, or Meg.
Yeah.
And you are not.
Okay, anyway. He said, "Hi, Feathers, Meghann, and Thomas. Thank you for everything you do. Since
I like
listening,
your height.
I've noticed a real improvement in my nutrition, particularly on race day. I took 5 gels during my last half marathon. A couple of questions, if I may. 1, I've noticed I find the first half of races really tough mentally. Mostly a feeling of, do I really want to push this hard?
Yes.
Could this be pre-race nutrition? I've noticed the
No.
same pace gets easier as the race goes on, which makes me think it isn't a case of overreaching."
Yo, Mr. Miller, I have to say, the first 3 miles, I'm like, why am I doing this? Especially on a marathon. You know that you've got like this entire 23 more miles to go, and you're like, why am I doing this? I've proved to myself I can run a marathon. What is the motivation here? This hurts. It sucks, and we got a long way to go. I don't know if that's what's going on in your head, but that's certainly going on in mine.
Here's what my instinct is. If this happens every single time that it feels really hard, maybe it's nutrition based. If it's just sometimes, I feel like that's just what it is. Sometimes you go out in a race and you're feeling amazing and you're having a day. Other times it's a grind from the start. And eventually it does get better, especially if you can, I don't know, mentally change your mind as you're going through and you lock into a pace.
Yeah, for me, I usually am like, okay, if I can make it to the halfway point, then you just got to run the other half. And it gets easier because you know that you've covered the miles. But it's tough. I think especially with the bigger races, it's like I think that's psychological just because like you should have energy stores and stuff. And if it gets easier, you're clearly carbed up and ready to go.
I agree. I wanted you two to answer it, so I'm glad you guys took it away because I was like, I'm not no, I don't think it's nutrition. I agree with what you guys are saying. Like, I think it's just either a little bit of a fear or part of me wondered like how old he is. I don't know. I've noticed as I get older, it takes me longer to warm up. Like sometimes I don't feel good.
Yeah,
like I'm serious. Sometimes it's like 5 miles before, or even sometimes if I'm really tired, it's like I hit that 8 miles and I'm almost home and I'm like, I finally feel good and I got to stop. So part of it, maybe it's like a warming up thing. I don't know.
I think what we're trying to say, Daniel, is that this feels very relatable.
Yeah.
And I think it's partially mental. It's partially warming up. It's unlikely nutrition if you think you're doing everything right and you're feeling good towards the end. So
yeah. When was the last race where you were struggling in the beginning and then something clicked over?
Well, I'm thinking about my workout this morning that I literally almost just stopped in the middle of it because I was like, this is too hard. I don't want to do it.
And what happened?
I was like, just do one more. And then I was like, okay, just do one more. And then like the last few felt better than the first few.
So when
like
you're
reps.
in that stage and you're part of you is saying, hey, let's just stop and give up. And you're like, okay.
Do you want to know why I didn't?
Yeah.
I was scrolling Instagram this morning and this chick that I follow from the UK was saying how you can get really fit in 8 weeks because she's running London, and how she was like just starting her training. And she's like, if you just keep doing the workouts and just keep doing the training, all of a sudden you'll be really fit. So I was like, I just got to do it. I just got to, even though it sucks, I just got to do it.
Yeah.
Here's my head problem is I've had really good workouts and really good runs leading up to races and then just shit the bed.
Do you think maybe some people thrive in the marathon environment and some people don't?
Yeah. I think Meghann switches. I can almost see like her eyes roll. It's like Severance. Megan's eyes roll back when she's about to start a marathon and she's a different person, just goes out there and it's like, I will crush this.
That's how I feel too. I can't remember ever feeling crummy at the beginning of a marathon. Towards the end maybe, but I'm like jacked. I'm like amped to be there and to be fit.
Because you've tapered and you're like,
yeah. Have you seen the meme for the person got an anxiety dog to help them with their anxiety? And it's just a dog. It's like its eyes are all tweaked and it's like
that's you.
Like this dog. I got this dog to help me with things. That's me at the marathon. Like I'll be fine. The night before the marathon, I start freaking out. And Emily Saul's piece that we have on YouTube and Spotify you can listen to, which is great meditation, which really helped for Berlin. But then I also knew I wasn't like pushing in Berlin for like a hard goal or anything. But going in, that in the morning I'm anxious and I know you're supposed to think, well, this is an opportunity for something great to happen. I'm like, this is an opportunity for disaster.
This is so good. A little glimpse into Thomas's head. Yeah.
Excitement and anxiety produce the same feelings inside.
Yes, but one of them gets me to like freak out and run horribly.
But you just got to shift the mindset.
Yeah. I need a couple wins.
All I know is hearing about you, listening to you guys talk about your workouts. Like, I can't wait to be like, I hate this. This is hard again. I can't wait. Like you say that, and I'm like, I get to do that again.
Honestly, I also thought about you because I was like, look, I'm healthy and I can run. It's just uncomfortable. Yeah. Just have to do it.
Yeah.
I would. Yeah. Mine wasn't uncomfortable today. As a matter of fact, it feels great. But then I go, well, yeah, you're doing it on a treadmill. It's much harder. So,
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. But I don't, is it much harder on the road? Am I doing, is the treadmill, do you think it's easier to train hard on a treadmill than the road?
To be fair, last year, training for all 4 of those marathons, I ran on a treadmill twice. Like, if I can get outside, I get outside. So I don't think I have I think that'll change now, but I don't think I have a fair assessment of that. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be running for London because we're doing a thing for Wahoo.
I think they even out at the end of the day. Like, I think it's all moving the needle forward. Like,
Sure.
It's all good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's.
I hope so. I'm banking a lot on the treadmill right now.
I was on that Wahoo treadmill in Chicago. I was having low back pain, but just didn't realize why. And it was amazing. Like, part of me was like, I would train on a treadmill if I had this under my feet. Like, I loved how the speed changed and it tilted a little. Like, it's like, it was like you were outside. I was like, this thing's legit. Yeah.
It's as close as you can get to running outside
for sure
on the treadmill.
Yeah. So I'll be doing a YouTube series heading up to London.
That's awesome.
And I filmed my first one this morning.
Let's answer his other second question before we go. He said, do you tend to correct at all for quantities of gel that might be left at the bottom of the packet? I imagine that I don't get all 23 grams from my gels as I don't completely empty the packet, but wasn't sure how to treat this. Maybe assume 20?
I like giggled when I read this because I'm like, that might be the benefit of Morton. It's so jelly, like you get it all.
Yeah.
Unless it's been like warm and squished and all that jazz. But you probably do leave some behind. And I would argue that the majority of marathon runners could withstand more carbs per hour. Like, I think we know now that like all of us should be trying to push the needle a little higher with how many grams of carbs we can take an hour. So if he thinks he's not getting them all, then instead of taking a 23-gram gel every 30 minutes and maybe only getting 40 grams an hour, maybe we train ourselves to take one every 20 minutes. So we're getting 60 grams an hour, right? Like, if he really thinks he's leaving some behind, he probably is. So I would recommend if different gels are harder to get all of it out of there, right? And like I said, I think the research is so positive that the more carbs we can get down in the marathon, probably the better for most of us. So maybe he just puts them a little closer together to account for that.
Perfect.
All right.
Thanks, everyone, as always, for tuning in. And if you have a question that we haven't answered,
just ask Big Meg.
You can send us an email at fuelforthesoulpodcast@gmail.com, and we will answer it here on the show. Bonus points if you make it funny.
Yeah, and you spell your name phonetically so Meghann can get it.
Yeah, also that.
All right, it's time. I'm going to sing it to you. No, I'm not. I'm just going to say it. Peas and carrots.
Bye.
Bye.